Ya, eskalasi konflik Rusia Ukraina masih berlangsung. Perundingan yang diharapkan dapat menghentikan perang gagal mendapatkan kesepakatan. Sementara militer Ukraina dikabarkan terus mendekat ibu kota Kyiv. Di tengah perang, Presiden Ukraina secara resmi mengajukan diri sebagai anggota Uni Eropa. Ratusan korban sipil berjatuhan. Bagaimana kemudian Ukraina menghadapi invasi? Apa yang membuat Ukraina meminta bergabung dengan Uni Eropa? Malam ini kami akan tanyakan langsung. Saya sudah bersama dengan Duta Besar Ukraina untuk Indonesia, Mr. Ambassador Vasyl Hamianin in our studio. Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for coming. I know you are quite busy and it must be painful to watch what happened in your country. But first of all, let us know from your perspective, how do you see the current situations in Ukraine right now? It's almost a week right after the invasion.
Selamat malam. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Actually, I see my role here, I see my mission here is to inform the Indonesian audience about what happens really happens in Ukraine, because you can hear a lot of lies, a lot of provocation and disinformation from various sources provided by the Russian Federation. But what happens here now in Ukraine, the planned quick war, so-called blitzkrieg, failed. That was planned very carefully, but they underestimated Ukrainian army, they underestimated Ukrainian resistance from the civilians, so it failed within 3 days, and now they are trying to regroup, to rearrange the ranks, and that's why that's what the reason they applied for negotiations, right? So the situation keeps very tense, and the worst thing started to happen, because first 3 days, they predominantly fight it with the army, on the civilian districts. They killed a lot of civilians there, but there was not the purpose. But after this, after they failed to capture, to possess Kyiv, capital city of Ukraine, and the main cities of northeast, of southwest, and the north and south, they started to hit the missiles onto the building of civilians and on the central parts of the big cities. So it was massive shelling of so-called Grad missiles, and a lot of casualties happened this time. And what is, you must know, and I think this is very important for you, they started to kill media people in Ukraine. They started to hit the television centers, they destroyed the TV towers in Kyiv and many other cities. So I pray that your colleagues over there are safe. Okay.
Before we talk about the victim, Mr. Ambassador, as you mentioned before that you found a lot of misinformations, maybe in here or in some of the people. What do you mean with the misinformations that now people consumed?
No, I'm actually talking about disinformation, about the lies, right? That you can find whenever you enter the Russia war or Russian ambassador here. 3 days ago, just 2 days ago before the war started, actually, I was very carefully listening to the interview to the ambassador of Russia to Republic of Indonesia. And she was like swearing that Russia would never ever start any war, would never ever attack a country, especially the neighboring country. It was totally 2 days before it started, right? Never ever, because they are brothers, and we experienced the Second World War, the casualties, blah blah blah. So it was so. I knew that this is like lies, but I couldn't prove this. And in 2 days after this, she was expected to participate in sort of online discussion, and she didn't appear because it was nothing to say.
Okay.
That's what I mean. Because I must admit that yes, Ukraine didn't pay millions of dollars to disseminate the lies and the disinformation about the history of Ukrainian-Russian relations, of the brotherhood, so-called, right, between our nations, of especially what they like to say that it's single nations, we cannot be divided, right? So all this stuff, all this rubbish, so we didn't have that much money, and we didn't work hard on this, unfortunately. But now we started to change the situation, and now it will be our main target to tell the truth, because your people, the proud people of Indonesia, deserve the truth.
Okay, to tell the truth. And is there any official statement or instructions from the presidents or from your official government to all the ambassadors?
Of course, yes. But you know, the problem is because Kyiv is under attack also. So they are working in various places, and they are working very organized. Everybody is organized. Nobody's panic. Families are there. All the officials are there. Nobody ran away. However, the instructions are very clear. First, we have to press on the Russia from all sides to let them stop the war, because our single goal is to stop the war on our land. So it's basically with the ambassadors act as they wish, as they think it's appropriate in this or that country. So it's differently, for example, for China, for Indonesia, for Japan, or for United Kingdom. But the basic line is this: we want to stop this war. We want to stop casualties. We want to stop killing civilians. We want to stop these crimes against humanity.
Okay. Want to stop the war is part of the point that your country is over in the talks that we know that failed yesterday or 2 days ago?
Right. Mentioning the talks, you know, you cannot fight and talk. You either fight or talk. If you fight, you don't talk. If you talk, you don't fight. So the problem is when Russians proposed these talks, Ukraine definitely agreed, because otherwise would have been accused of not following the rules, not willing to talk, and all this stuff. So we agreed, of course, but we understand that when they sit down and start talking, the shelling and bombing of Kharkiv started at the very same time. So while they talk, we have hundreds of civilians dying there, right? So what can we talk about in this situation? I'm just asking Russian militaries and Russian president.
Okay. The second talks we heard that is now preparing. Do you still hopes with the talks or with the talks and Russia right now?
Right. Again, coming back to the talks, right? The hope is like diplomacy. It dies the last. So the hope and diplomacy die last. So we always hope for diplomacy. We hope for the ratio. We hope for the goodwill of anyone, especially for the aggressor. Well, we don't expect this from them, because this is like outrageous, but still we have hope. And we hope that they stop fighting, and then we can sit down and talk. Of course, this is my personal hope also. Well, I don't get this instruction, right? But I would hope that if we sit down and talk really like in real terms, then our friends and partners will take part in these talks as mediators. Because it's very difficult to talk with Russians. They always lie. So we have to have witnesses at least, right?
Okay. Ambassador Hamianin, once again, how tough the situation is right now in your country. As the United Nations say, the numbers of civilians that, including children, more than 13, if I'm not mistaken, maybe you can correct me the numbers. How tough is right now for the Ukrainian?
It's very painful to speak about this, because I have the whole family of myself staying still in Kyiv. They didn't evacuate. They didn't want to go. They want to see the enemy dead or withdrawn. And they're all there. My children, my wife, my mother-in-laws, and the grandmothers, everybody's there. So the situation with casualties, well, I mean, the one killed child is the big tragedy. Is the global tragedy. And now
it's not about the numbers, right?
Yes, and now we have the hundreds of civilians and the dozens of children dead. This cannot be measured, right? This is Hague Tribunal. And how tough the situation is, I would say that in the addition to the massive Russian tank troops and the artillery bombings and grad bombings, missiles, and the air force attacks, etc. We also had the troops incoming from Belarus. So the other traitor appeared here. So now we're fighting with the invaders, not only from Russia, from Belarus. Okay. So yes, the situation is not very good, not very good. But the main thing is Ukraine will never surrender. And the main thing is, I would tell you, because I tried to look at the history of Indonesia, how they fight it back in the 40s. I would say that the army of invader are fighting not with the army of the occupied country, but they're fighting with a nation of 40 million people, where like a good half of it can take the weapons and fight back. Okay. So how can what army should you have to fight with the with 10 million people, armed people, right? So they will be defeated, and that's what I think. What I tell every day to myself, to my friends. Merdeka atau mati.
We talk later about your expectations to our government, but so your families right now is at Kyiv.
In Kyiv, yes.
Okay. You still communicate with your family, or maybe is there any communications with Mr. President?
Thanks God, it's still the internet connection, not telephone connection, but internet connection. Maybe it's hidden well, the cables and everything, but still, yes, we communicate every day. However, not the whole day, because I'm really busy. And we communicate in the evening, at night, and it's 5 hours difference. Yes, we communicate. They're calm, they are not panicking, but it's not very easy to find the food now, and because of deliveries, because logistics is not safe, and it's very difficult to find medicines. My daughter is with pneumonia now, and my son with another with a sort of influenza, and it's not easy to find the medicines. Okay. That's because of the situation, because of the invasion.
Yeah. Ambassador Hamianin, also this week, in the middle of the escalations, we know that President Zelensky asked the European Union to admit Ukraine immediately. What does this move mean? Is there any goal about that decisions to the European Union?
This was the. I mean, we have been trying to apply for the membership in the European Union for a long time. EU and NATO is our strategic goals, and enshrined in the Constitution of Ukraine, because we belong to Europe, and we don't want to belong to the Soviet Union, because the communist regime committed so many crimes during the last 100 years. So we don't want this to repeat. So we have refused from the communist ideology for good, and unfortunately Russia didn't. So that's why this is the contradiction. We want to go to live in a free and democratic Europe, and they still want to live in the Soviet Union. So the decision of President Zelensky was that in the extraordinary situation we have now, if we are admitted, we'll have even more legal support from our partners, because the charters and the rules and everything of the European Union limit the support to Ukraine as non-member, right? However, we do receive a lot of support from the neighboring countries, and remote ones too.
Yeah, your country got a lot of support. Any response about that?
Sorry?
Your country's got many supports, right? Any response about the support that your country got from the other countries?
The response. We are grateful. We are really grateful, because this is like a friendly hand. I mean, we could fight even with knives and sticks, but it would be much better if you fight with javelins, because we have plenty of tanks, like hundreds of tanks, right? And BMP and everything. So if we don't get stingers and javelin, we will be just crushed, and more people die. The weapons, it's lethal weapon, but it's defensive weapons. We need them because we don't want our people to die. It's very simple. We don't going to attack anyone on whatever territory, as someone may prove, but the support will not include only weapons. It will support the logistics. It will include the logistics, the gasoline for our machines and tanks. It would include medicines. It would include the helmets and everything, all the ammunition and all the rest of it, right? Everything. So anything will be useful, and we will be grateful for every single dollar from all our friends worldwide.
Okay,
Yes.
Mr. Ambassador, as we know that this afternoon you met the House of Representatives, right? And you always mentions about the Indonesian's role in this conflict. So what is actually your expectations to Indonesia, and now the military troops is getting even closer and closer to the capital. How long the Ukraine could hold out the invasions? But you can answer later after the break. We will back with Ambassador Hamianin. Stay with us on CNN Indonesia.
Oh, there were two questions, actually.
Anda kembali di CNN Indonesia Newscast. I'm still with Ambassador Hamianin. With me now, we talk a lot about the situations in your country, in Ukraine. And before the break, I asked you about how long the Ukraine could hold out the invasions, because it's been a week, and President Putin signaling that the attack could be for a long time.
Yeah.
What do you say?
May I say very briefly, I am absolutely sure it's nothing to hide. Ukraine will resist until the last aggressor is dead or kicked off my land.
Okay. Okay.
Nothing to add.
So that is the people's of patriotism, right?
It's not mine. It's not my position. It's the position of Ukrainians. I mean, you listen. It's very simple. We are open country, democratic media. You just look at the interviews. You have the kids like 10 years old and everything like this. You have like even 7, 8 years old kids who are preparing the Molotov cocktails, who are trying to make the camouflage for the army. Like people in the wheelchairs, right, disabled. They are suing something like clothes for the soldiers and everything. This nation cannot just surrender. It cannot be beaten because everyone is fighting, is ready to fight at least.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Talking about Indonesia, we have a video that the statement from our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mrs. Retno Marsudi. Let us see.
Yeah.
Kita akan lihat pernyataan dari Bu Menlu terkait dengan posisi Indonesia terhadap perang Ukraina dan juga Rusia.
Ukraina dan Rusia adalah sahabat dekat Indonesia. Indonesia ingin membangun persahabatan yang lebih kuat dengan kedua negara tersebut. Saya sudah melakukan pembicaraan per telepon dengan Menteri Luar Negeri Ukraina dan Menteri Luar Negeri Rusia. Rekan-rekan, konstitusi Indonesia memandatkan agar Indonesia ikut menjaga perdamaian dunia. Perdamaian tidak dapat terwujud jika terjadi perang.
Yeah, Ambassador Hamianin, that is the statement from our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mrs. Retno Marsudi. She said that she already communicate with your Minister of Foreign Affairs and also from the Russia, and our constitutions still stick with the rules that we keep peace and supporting the sovereignty. What is your expectation actually, or your hopes to our country in these situations?
Yeah, again, it's not a difficult question because if you think about it, and I'm sure absolutely about it, that what we have here is not the fight over Ukraine. It's not a fight of Russia against Ukraine or something like this. It's a fight for the peace and security in Europe and global peace and security at large. Because if you have the mad dictator over there with the nuclear weapons in huge amounts, and the man who is threatening all the countries who would ever support Ukraine in fight against Russia with nuclear weapons, I mean, what could you expect from this man? So we are talking about global things, and every voice is every voice counts. So every single voice, every single country is important to stand up and condemn this aggression. That's it. I'm not talking about the like bombing St. Petersburg. No, I'm talking about that every nation which is democratic, like Indonesia, which is proud nation, who knew the atrocities of war and who fought for independence and won the independence, he should stand up and say something strong and persuasive. Because I'm absolutely sure that Indonesia now becoming global power, and being a global power, not just regional leader and everything, but a global power, which is proven by the presidency in G20 and all the politics we have. I really appreciate this. But the global power should have a right to speak out and to be sound and to be heard, because the voice of Indonesia would not be ignored by no one. Nobody would ignore this. And I would like to remind everyone just to remind, it's a history, right? Everyone in Indonesia, the people of Indonesia, that back in 45, 46, 47, 48 years, it was Ukraine that supported, maybe one of the few countries that really initiated and supported Indonesia when it was alone. So Indonesia, just try to recollect how it feels to be alone against the strong enemy, alone in front of him, and how important is it to have the support from a friend.
Okay. Did you talk to our Minister of Foreign Affairs?
Well, not directly, but we just had some communications on that. Yes, and I do hope that Indonesia will support Ukraine, not like by expressing the concerns and not by...
But more something more strong.
I would expect to, in the statement, I would expect to hear the words like condemnation of Russian aggression, that sort of things, at least. And of course, we do hope that Indonesia will think about restricting Russia's activities, especially the media, which are disseminating disinformation, as I mentioned, closing the business with Russia, because every dollar that goes to Russia now, it goes to Ukraine in shape of tanks, in shape of bullets. You know what? I had some politicians from the West said that, you know what, we are suffering from these sanctions. We are suffering because it's painful for us too, for Europe and everyone. But it is the price we pay for the future of our children. It's the price we pay for the future of this planet. It's the price we pay for peace and stability and development. Think about it.
Okay. So if the Indonesian government just said about the concerns, it disappoint you or what? Because you wish for something more strong, right? What maybe you can explain us what kind of the strongest actions that Indonesians can do?
You know what? I'm not in the position to criticize Indonesian government, because you have your rules, you have your psychology, you have your history and backgrounds and everything.
Free and active foreign policies.
I mean, every country has its principles and all the rest of it. We can criticize, we can abstain, we can do whatever we want, right? So I'm not to criticize. I just want to call upon the government, the parliament of Republic of Indonesia, think it over once again, that it is not, I repeat, it's a battle over the global peace and security, and every voice is important for us. The more countries stand up and say, we condemn Russian invasion, we condemn Russian aggression and the crimes against humanity, which they commit now in Ukraine, the faster, the sooner this war will be over. I'm absolutely sure about this.
Okay. It's interesting to discuss and talk with you about the situations in Ukraine and your expectations to the globals, to the another countries. What now after what President Zelensky's asked to the European Union, and then you got the support from other country, and what next that your country wish from the another country, from the global, especially more from Indonesia?
What do we wish from the other countries is very simple. The utmost goal and purpose of us to clear the land from the invaders, right? So if the invaders just don't hear, don't listen, and don't want to do anything, just to withdraw, we do ask our partners to do something, to make them feel painful. How can you do this? Weapons, defensive weapons, sanctions, which beat the because if Russian people start thinking that why these sanctions came into place, what happened, why, it will be difficult for Putin and his minions to explain to the people that it's because Americans are bad. It's not the right explanation. They always succeed in this, but now it's different times. So I would expect that Russian people raise too, and we have the protests in Russia also, protesting against the war in Ukraine, because it touches the interests of Russians too. By the way, Indonesia is feeling it now too. I mean, the influences of prices, the prices are a bit growing down because of this situation. So the voice of Indonesia, sound voice of Indonesia, will also resolve some minor economic influences created by this invasion. So we expect the people of the world to stand up, say strong words, and do strong things. Like the European, now it's more than 40 countries have closed the airspace for Russian Federation aircrafts, so they cannot fly nowhere. They cancelled visas, they cancelled the traveling, they cancelled everything. Oh, they cancelled the trading by foreign currencies, which is very good. I was applauding for this. This is something that can make people think. Because when you are strong, you are fat, you are well off, you are, who is my enemy? No one. I can beat everyone to death, right? And then you start thinking. And when people start thinking, it can be very dangerous for the government to control them. Because thinking people is something the dictatorship doesn't want to have.
Okay. Every voice counts, that you always mentions, and this is for the peace, not only in Ukraine but also in all over the world, because the impact is very big to the stabilities, to the economic, of course. And so far, how about the impact in an economic side in your country through these situations, in these escalations?
You see, we now live in a very small world. It's globalized, and if something happens in this part of the world, immediately in a few seconds this part will feel uncomfortable, right? It's not like 200 years ago when you travel like long ways. So everything happening in every corner of the world influences the economy, the stability, the development in every other corner. So the war in Ukraine now causes major uncomfortability, I would say, to Russian Federation. It just started to do so. And it causes, I'm not talking now about Ukraine, what happens then, right? But it causes a lot of uncomfortabilities to China, to Indonesia, to India, to African countries, to the Latin America, to everyone, basically. Because everyone is interconnected, the export, the imports and everything. But I want to warn the Russian, they used to say warmongers, right? People who, it's from the Soviet times, right? Don't expect that our friends and partners and people who really love peace and security and stability in the world and do protect it, don't expect that they will sell out the principles of peace, democracy, and the rights of people for sovereignty and territorial integrity, just sell them for oil or gas for Russian Federation. They will not going to happen. Principles worth much more, because we remember, if we forget the past, we are risking repeating it. Remember the First World War, people start forgetting, then Second World War. And if people forget it, maybe the Third World War could have happened like in 60s, That's because of people remember. They created the United Nations, they created NATO and all this stuff. So we still keep going, keep running. But we shouldn't allow to, nuclear war or something. It's outrageous. And the very words of threat, like threatening countries with nuclear strike from the President Putin, I mean, it sounds like really outrageous. Unbelievable, but it's true. It's in the news.
Okay. At last, Mr. Ambassador, the second meet, or what we call it, talks. Is about to happen. once again, what do you expect to the second talks, and what is your hopes? Because as we talked a lot of before, we hope that the war will be end, and the second talks, what do you expect?
Right. A part of what I already said, we expect peace, and we don't expect to have the army of the other country on my territory. Right. A part of this, I would say this: we would expect the world to know the requirements and to analyze the requirements and conditions provided by Ukrainian side and by Russian side.
Okay.
So Ukrainian conditions is very simple. We want to stop fighting, stop killing civilians, and just second is withdraw the army, and then we'll talk about the reparations, about the everything else. But the Russians,
so 3 points, the requirement from the Ukraine.
Well, basically the 1 point now for now, it's stop fighting.
Stop fighting.
Stop fighting. Stop killing people. Right. Stop this. These atrocities. But Russian conditions are much more complicated, and if you think about it, you will be surprised because they don't like to speak about it so often. You can ask the Ludmila Dubes Rusia the other day, maybe. The first is very simple: demilitarize Ukraine, meaning that we should give up all the weapons just to be unprotected. Ask any citizen in any country, do you want to live in the country unprotected because someone just doesn't want you to have weapons? A second is very simple also. They want us to de-NATO, meaning that we should promise and swear on Bible and on whatever else.
Really?
Never ever in our history, in our future history, we would even look at NATO direction. Not to join, not even look. No cooperation, no joining NATO, nothing. It's interesting, by the way, to say that before the 2014, Russian cooperation with NATO, on the scale, on the terms and everything, was much bigger than Ukrainian. And the third is denazization, meaning that it's very simple. We should give up our national identity. It's like you should change the language, you should change the state system, and we should choose the president which will be acceptable and loved by Russian Federation. That's it. How can normal people in normal world accept that? Even think about accepting that. Right?
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. We hope that we have a concern about what happened in your country, our government as well, and we hope that the situation is getting better. And the talks could be get the solutions between two countries, and your expectations to Indonesia would be heard by our government. Thank you once again.
Thank you
once again. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Pak
Dubes Ukraina untuk Indonesia, Mr. Ambassador Hamianin, for your time. See you, and thank you very much for coming.
Anytime.
Thank you.